Did you get your invitation? Once a year, Jehovah's Witnesses celebrate the, quote, Memorial of Christ's Death. Global events, their only official recognized celebration as a group. Former J-Dub here. I went to the memorial every year of my life, till I was 30 years old. Here are 5 things you need to know about what really happens at a Jehovah's Witness memorial. The ceremony. All right, you sit in an auditorium, most likely the Kingdom Hall, sometimes it's the local Ramada. Speaker gets up there, he gives a talk about the importance of Jesus' ransom. More on this soon. A memorial attendant stands on each end of the aisle. First, they pass a plate of unleavened bread, basically crackers, one person to the next, all the way down the aisle. This is supposed to represent Jesus' body. Then, the next emblem, a glass of red wine, is passed down the aisle. You carefully, and that's supposed to represent Jesus' blood. Pray you don't spill it or, pass it to some dummy with a toddler. But you don't eat the bread or drink the wine. You don't partake of the emblems. Why? The 144,000. So Jehovah's Witnesses don't teach that people go to heaven when they die, except for a very specific number that they plucked from the book of Revelation, 144,000. Specifically, you guessed it, 144,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. They believe that these 144,000 individuals are going to rule in heaven alongside Jesus. Okay, think of it like, I'm going to put it in terms you can understand. It's like Jesus is the president and the 144,000 is his cabinet or his administration. All right, this guy, and this guy basically think that they're going to be getting capes and scepters and judging the rest of us. And so at the memorial, this special group of people, who they refer to as the anointed, are the only ones who are allowed to consume of the bread and the wine. So when they partake of the emblems, it's a public statement to everyone that I'm one of the chosen, I'm one of this special group, and everyone else in the auditorium sits there like second-class citizens. There's a problem. If you have an 8-ounce glass, and you try to pour 16 ounces of beer into that glass, what do you have? A party, am I right? But seriously, the problem Jehovah's Witnesses have been running into for decades now is that if you say only 144,000 people are going to heaven, and every year good job, class. Every year, more than that number are partaking of the emblems, or each year you are having more and more people claiming to be part of this group, all right? It's basic napkin math. Yeah, they got themselves into a little bit of a pickle, huh? And so what are they going to do to rectify it? Do what they do best. Throw their parishioners under the bus. Basically, when they realized that they had backed themselves into a corner and they screwed up, they tried to explain their way out of this by suggesting that some who partake might have emotional or mental problems that are leading them to this erroneous conclusion that they're part of the anointed, that their partaking is basically illegitimate, which is not only highly insulting to the people who sincerely believe that they're part of this group, but also, too, the only logical question to ask that would be on anybody's mind is, what metric or means are you using to determine who's legit and who's not? How are you, or who are you, to make that determination? See, there's so many holes in their logic. So this whole thing is completely asinine on multiple levels. One, of the billions of people who have walked this earth, you're going to take that number literally, making it insanely, ridiculously, extremely slim that you're going to be part of that group. If your interpretation of scripture is correct. 2, you're essentially calling your own people crazy. And finally, it's just wildly hypocritical of you. It's wildly hypocritical for you to get a free pass as Jehovah's Witnesses to say, well, I just know in my heart that I'm part of this group. Because you have to understand, a lot of us who were witnesses who were not part of this group would ask and be like, well, how do you know? We all knew somebody. I know some people in the comments will at least know somebody who was part of the anointed back when they were J-Dubs. And you ask them, it's like, well, how do you know? And they're just like, I just know, right? And we just, oh, that's fascinating. Wow, that's lovely. But what about everybody else in other churches, other Christians who are saying the same thing? They have that sincere belief that they're going to heaven. They can say the same thing. And you're trying to discredit them? Like, what makes you special? It's a joke. They just dug themselves a huge hole. And my husband and I were actually talking about this one, that, there's been so many changes, in the organization. You guys know there's been so many changes recently in the organization. Women can wear pants, men can have beards, you can clink glasses and toast. These things used to be like against the rules, and now it's like totally fine. You can go to college if your conscience allows you to. So they're backpedaling on things due to their own insane, sheer irrelevance in 2026. They have to get more mainstream, or they're just going to people already think they're a joke, but they really got to catch up and do some things more mainstream or they're just going to fade into absolute obscurity. So my point is, they've been preaching this 144,000 teaching for decades as gospel. I would not be surprised in the slightest if 2 weeks from now they change this and they backpedal on this one too. So anyways, if you're like passing the plate or you're passing the wine, you see somebody up front drinking or eating a cracker, that's what's going on. Attendance. So I could get into the data and numbers, but my husband, John, you might know him as XJW Analyzer. He did a way better job of this. You can check out his video for these types of specifics. I'll leave a link in the bio. But I want to talk about who goes to the memorial. Right? I want to give you a profile of your typical memorial attendee. There are 2 types of people who go to the memorial. 1, Jehovah's Witnesses, and 2, deadbeat Jehovah's Witnesses. You see now. First group is trapped in the matrix. That second group has been red-pilled, but is being guilt-tripped by mom, dad, auntie, grandma into going to the memorial anyway, just to make the family proud. These people are not interested in being Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't believe anything that's being preached from the pulpit. They don't believe any of it, but these people choose the path of least resistance and go anyway just to keep the peace and not upset their devout Jehovah's Witness family, all right? A really toxic legacy that I actually talk about in my new book, Burning Down the House, Coping with Toxic Family Dynamics, Estrangement, and Rebuilding Your Life. Link in bio. So basically, many of my former peers, they're afraid to rock the boat and upset mom and dad, even though they completely disagree with Jehovah's Witnesses and would rather eat their own eyeballs than sit through a memorial. These individuals are either completely awake already to the indoctrination, but their family doesn't know. These are secret non-believers called PIMOs. It's an acronym. PIMO stands for someone who is physically in the organization but has mentally checked out. Or you have another group who is still actually mentally tethered, but they've fallen off the radar for a while. These people are what we call in XJW circles POMI. They are physically out but mentally in. So when these people show up, it's their way of showing their loyalty to the organization. It's kind of like a form of penance. They feel bad that they haven't been going to meetings. They haven't been living their Jehovah's Witness lifestyle. So it's like, sure, I'll go to the memorial. So, they go to appease mom and dad, and because a lot of times they have a guilty conscience. I mean, it's just laughable. It's one night a year, and they're going to go home and just do what they were doing before. They're not going back. They're not going back to being J-dubs. And unfortunately, for a lot of them, it's just a vicious cycle they can't find their way out of. It's the same song and dance every year. But actually, the worst part of all of this, whether they, fall into the first group, they secretly don't believe they're PIMO, or they kind of believe and they're still doing the back and forth, is that a lot of them have children now, and they are dragging their children into this environment. So no matter what category they fall into, they haven't worked through their own shit, and then they pass this on to the next generation. Round and around we go. A legacy of fakery and people-pleasing in the name of family. All right, this is not Easter, all right? Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate Easter. This is not an Easter celebration. They don't acknowledge Jesus' resurrection. And their justification for this is that they're going off of Jesus saying, to his apostles during Passover, he's saying, this represents my body, this represents my blood, keep doing this in remembrance of me, this specific ritual. Maybe you got an invitation in the mail and you're like, oh, I'm Christian too. And you think you're going to go to this thing. That's happened before, where people showed up and they were like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in Jesus the same way that you believe in Jesus. You guys are not the same. You're not on the same page. Not an Easter celebration. And it's boring as You're celebrating a funeral. I can respect the Jehovah's Witnesses for wanting to have a reverential tone, and this is their most sacred night, but there's no celebratory feel to it. Isn't this supposed to be a wonderful thing? Jesus died for us. We're so grateful for his ransom sacrifice. I mean, even when somebody who's not Jesus dies, you hang out with friends and family afterwards and you eat potato salad. Remember the time that Uncle Bob just got wasted at the wedding? Oh, those were good times. Or there's going to be refreshments afterwards after the memorial. They don't have anything like that. Jewish people have oneg after their Shabbat service, and different churches, have food and drink, and it encourages community and people hang out afterwards. I'm thinking about this. It was so weird. We celebrate that we make a huge to-do about the memorial or Jehovah's Witnesses have their conventions, I know, and I know you guys can attest to this, any ex-J-dubs in the comments, we're all thinking about where we're going to go eat afterwards. Like, I know we can laugh about it because it is funny, but it's also sad. It's like, these are our people. These are supposed to be your people, your religious community. And everybody's just thinking of like where they're going to go to eat afterwards. You're preoccupied. Your heart's not really fully in it. Everybody fractures off, splinters off, goes out to eat in their own little groups, their little cliques, their little families. It's just weird. Like, no sense of community unless you're sitting in that chair and then you go home and it's over. It's the life of a Jehovah's Witness. It's just so anticlimactic. So yeah, super boring. I think it's a wasted opportunity. Even though I'm not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, it's like, dang, make it a little bit more celebratory, but yeah, just a downer. So don't expect, if you're a non-Jehovah's Witness going to this for the first time, don't expect any like, woo, Jesus.
Only God can do it. 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 Do it.
Anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button for future content about Jehovah's Witnesses, and I will see you in the next video.